Okay, good morning. Hey, a couple of things. First, I don't know if you guys noticed the date change over there. Yeah. Okay, so that's Friday at midnight, or 11:59. Okay, so I set that. Hey, I set that assignment up just a few minutes ago on Canvas, so to turn it in. Okay, so get that in on time and write me a good book review. Yesterday we talked quite a bit about committees, different types of committees. Then we got into the House, the Senate. Well, actually, we didn't talk about the Senate. We got into the House. And with that, guys, we were talking about how after we take the census every 10 years, and I actually have the numbers here written in these notes. So for 2020, the states that gained House seats, Texas gained 2 more. So next time we see an electoral college map come out, Texas will have 40 electoral college votes. Okay. Florida, Colorado, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon all gained 1 seat. The states that lost seats, California, New York, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. All in that pocket up there, what we refer to as the Rust Belt, except for California, which has gone insane. So, people are leaving, okay? Even though the weather is wonderful there and the scenery is wonderful there, people they just can't take it anymore, okay?
Oh, actually, crazy.
So, Kansas currently, as I told you guys yesterday, in confidence, is working on drawing these new lines. Okay. Now you can draw these lines in a way, as you see here, you've got a Republican here, Republican here, Republican here, and then a Democrat here. Okay. So the state legislature gets to draw the lines for the reapportionment, which you have to do after the census. Okay, even though we have the same number of seats, 4, okay, population within the state has shifted. So the fastest growing county in Kansas is Johnson County.
Oh.
Okay, so as they grow more, you have to adjust these lines. Okay, as some of the small towns dry up of people more in the western part of the state, you got to adjust. Okay, and what you can do, guys, is draw these lines in such a way as to possibly create this as a Republican seat. Okay, this is a process called what? Gerrymandering. Okay. And I'm going to go through that with you today. Now, a lot of political scientists feel like gerrymandering has become a big problem. And I tend to agree with that. There's 435 seats, districts that are going to be drawn, okay? In the previous couple House elections, political scientists feel that only about 80 of those districts are competitive. Meaning that we know the 1st district of Kansas is going to go to a Republican. We know the 4th district of Kansas is going to go to a Republican. Okay? The 3rd is, it's one of those districts that could go either way. Okay, especially if they redraw the lines in a way that favors the Republican Party. So in most of the 50 states, guys, it is the state legislature that gets to draw these lines. Who controls the state legislature in the state of Kansas, Republicans or Democrats? In Kansas? Republicans. In fact, they have what's called a supermajority. Okay, so they can override any presidential veto by our Democratic governor, Laura Kelly. Okay, and they've done that on a couple different occasions, including on that new map. Okay, so the Democrats have sued in state court. They're not going to win in federal court on the gerrymandering in the state of Kansas. Okay, I'm going to get into some more details on how that works here in just a second. But let me tell you this. If you look at the 50 state legislatures, you have 50 state legislatures. Those of you in history, you just knew all the capitals. Right, Grace? All the capitals of the 50 states. Each one of them has a state legislature. 18 of those state legislatures are controlled by Democrats. 29 of those state legislatures are controlled by Republicans. And 3 are split. So the House maybe is Republican, the Senate Democrat, or vice versa. Does that make sense? Okay. So, which party does this favor when we're drawing the new census line? The new district lines because of the census. 29 states. They get to redraw the lines. Okay? Now,
Really big apple.
you said it's a big apple. Okay, very good, Minty. Now, so if you were to name some of the boroughs in New York City, could you name some? Okay, Queens, Manhattan. Whoa. The Bronx. Albany's the capital, not New York. Brooklyn. Lynn. Okay.
Chinatown?
Not really.
Oh, Greenwich.
Okay. Any of you guys been to New York City? Lexi, what are you talking about? You ever been to New York City? Yeah. Okay. Did you go to Chinatown?
No.
You go to Manhattan? You go to Times Square?
Yeah.
That's in Manhattan.
Geographically challenged.
I understand. Now, how many people live in New York City? A lot.
Oh, I was wrong. It's not.
Now that population is shrinking, yes? Because they just lost another electoral college vote. Okay. Now, how many people live in each one of these districts in Kansas? 81,000.
That's dollars.
Okay. You guys are pissing me off. You're distracting me. Now, 781,000. So how many districts are we going to have in New York City? Like 11 or 12, something like that. Okay, now, who controls the state legislature in the capital, Albany? Democrats. try and draw the districts in this city where there would be no Republicans elected. Now, if you're on a scavenger hunt, okay, now this may be difficult. You're on a scavenger hunt in New York City, and you're looking for a Republican. In which of these boroughs might you find one? Very liberal.
I know nothing about
For the hippies.
it. All I know is that Broadway is there.
Yeah, same. And I heard how the court was supposed to go there, but then COVID came.
Wall Street, Upper East Side, Manhattan. Okay? Madison Avenue. Okay, Lexi, you might have gone shopping there.
Like Madison Square. I don't think so. Maybe. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, okay. All right, so let's say, for the sake of argument, there's more Republicans in Manhattan than there are in any of these other boroughs, okay? Now, so Harlem is heavily what? African American, and they vote heavily what? Okay, so let's do this. The state legislature is going to do this. We're going to take part of Harlem, we're going to take part of Queens, get some Staten Island here, and we're going to just take a little slice of Manhattan, and we got us a Democratic district. Okay, we're going to take a little bit more Harlem, get some big Bronx in here, a bit of Manhattan, and you got another Democratic district. Okay, we're going to take another slice of Harlem. We're going to squeeze down here, take a bigger slice of Greenwich Village, squeeze up into here. We're going to go up around here, and we got another Democratic district.
It looks like you're drawing the country's era.
Oh, we still got some Manhattan left. Okay, well, let's get some more Bronx. Okay, a little Chinatown, more Greenwich Village. Okay, get more Bronx, and then we take that, and we got another Democratic district.
That's like, there's not.
So this is how you gerrymander. Okay, is you put your strengths in one district. Okay, so if you wanted to create one district out of Harlem, almost guaranteed to get a Democrat and probably an African American Democrat that will run for office there and win. Okay, or you can divide up your opponent's strengths by cutting into their strengths. I can get you guys, we can get on one of the cheese wagons out here, and I can drive you around Wichita, Kansas, okay, around this city, and I can point to you where Republicans and Democrats live. Yeah.
I mean, it is yellow.
Right. So, guys, what are some of the nicer neighborhoods out west here, like Fossil something Ridge or what? Huh? Fox Ridge. Is that that's a nice one? Okay. So do you think there's a lot of Democrats that live there? Probably not. Now, if I can take you over by my house or by Wichita State University, okay, you're going to find a lot of Democrats. Okay? It's easy. In fact, guys, when you register to vote as a Republican or independent, it's public knowledge. You can go look up where Republicans and Democrats actually live. Okay? And you can draw these lines accordingly every 10 years. No, we can look it up. It's public. Now, guys, remember how the South used to be solidly Democratic? Okay, so let me tell you a little story. Okay, I'm going to come back here to the map. This thing will turn for me. Turn the whole thing. All right. Now, guys, from the Civil War, right? Lincoln was a Republican. The South was dominated by Democrats. That means all the state legislatures were dominated by Democrats as well. And I told you guys the story about when I went to register to vote, right? Back in 1986, and the lady asked me, do you want to register as Republican or Democrat, right? And I said Republican. She said, why? We won't have anybody to vote for, okay? By 1992, 94, the whole South was shifting Republican, okay? But guys, it took longer than that for the state legislatures to switch over. On a national level, the South started voting Republican for president and for U.S. Congress. But the state legislature, guys, these people were entrenched, these Democrats. So it took time. And so what you started seeing in the late 90s and the early 2000s was states like North Carolina. The state legislature switched to Republican control. You get to like year 2000 in Texas, with this many House seats, switches from Democrat to Republican in Austin. And so the Republicans are now in power in Austin, and they get to redraw 36 districts. Think about how many seats they can gerrymander Democrats out of a job. Big time. Okay? And the Democrats were ticked. They were mad. Okay? In fact, you guys know, we talked about what a quorum is in here yet? We have. It's a certain number that need to be present to conduct business. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So in Austin, Republicans redrew this map, and Democrats were like, we're not. No. But you had to have some of the Democrats there in order to conduct business. So all the Democrats in Austin, the state legislatures, fled the state to New Mexico. They rented hotel rooms across the border. Remember that position I told you about the other day, the sergeant at arms, that can compel a member to the floor by force if necessary? Well, the sergeant at arms in Austin doesn't have jurisdiction outside the state. So they all fled the state. And the Republicans are like, oh my gosh, okay, we'll come back, we'll change the map, we'll compromise. And then the Democrats came back and they looked at the map and said, and this time they went, Democrats spread the wealth. They went to Oklahoma and rented hotel rooms in Oklahoma. Okay, and then the Republicans compromised some more, and finally they came back and they voted on it. Okay, same thing happened in Wisconsin. When Wisconsin switched over to Republican legislature, they fled the state and they went to Illinois. Okay, so I think that's kind of funny. It's just one of those political things that I'm not getting upset about. Okay, it's just kind of funny. It's a good story. Okay, so as we see the changing map here, guys, with the Electoral College, it also determines who controls Congress. Okay, and I don't know if you guys saw the new inflation numbers out again today. 8.5% inflation. Again, the highest level since 1981. We have not reached Jimmy Carter levels yet, but we're getting there. Okay. And if you look at what happened to the Democrats after Jimmy Carter's 4 years, okay, it was a bloodbath. Okay. So as again, we look forward to November to see what's going to happen politically here. And a lot of these lines, these maps are still being drawn in these states. There's lawsuits and all kinds in all the different states. Okay. So where does this thing gerrymandering come from? Okay. Well, let me give you the history on this. Okay. In 1811, the governor of Massachusetts was a guy named Elbridge Gerry, or Elbridge Gerry. He was famously one of the anti-federalists. Remember, we read the Federalist Papers, Madison, Jay, and Hamilton. Elbridge Gerry was one of the authors of the anti-federalist papers. Okay, him and the governor of New York, who was a guy named Clinton. Okay, now Governor Gerry was in charge in Massachusetts of drawing Does that look like Massachusetts to you?
I don't know about Massachusetts.
I don't know.
This is Cape Cod. Okay.
I just know the chips.
And he drew a map that a newspaper reporter looked at, and he said it looked like a salamander. Looking at this district on a map, he said it looks like a salamander. So he put the two words together, Gerry, salamander. The political science term was born. Gerrymandering. That's where this comes from. I don't know.
I don't know why.
So do you guys, now you probably need to talk about gerrymandering on the test at some point, okay? But can you guys understand how this works? Felt like I did a pretty good job discussing that.
So is it?
To favor your political party, either by, concentrating your strengths in a district or dividing an opponent's strengths. Okay. All right. So we're still talking about the House of Representatives, and the next thing in your notes there was about. Is everybody printing them? Okay. I'll put them up.
Like so back like maybe not even the area, but like all of the Democratic lawmakers who Texas like fled for some reason was because of the gerrymandering.
Yeah. They didn't want to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was gerrymandering. I know they didn't want to vote on it. But
Yes.
They didn't know what it was.
Yeah, because of the gerrymandering. Okay. Here, this is the next thing in our notes that we have not discussed yet. We got gerrymandering, Texas, Kansas. Okay. Non-voting members of the House of Representatives. Okay, so this talks to our territories. So Puerto Rico gets what they call it. They have a different name. It's called a resident commissioner. They serve for a 4-year term. These people cannot vote in the House. They can vote. They can be on committees, and they can vote in committees, but they cannot vote on the House or Senate floor. Okay. These are delegates for the American Samoa, the District of Columbia, Guam, and the American Virgin Islands. Okay, and they each one has a delegate. Okay, which is roughly how many they would have. They would have one based on their population. Okay. So as I said, they can participate, just can't vote. Okay. Good. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if someone was like born in Puerto Rico or Guam or any of those places or the District of Columbia,
Mm-hmm.
could they like run for president?
No. DC, yes.
DCS, but not
No.
Puerto Rico.
No. Okay. I don't think so. That's a good question. Somebody can Google that. Okay, but I don't think so. Okay. Now let's look at the House leadership. And again, page 74 is very helpful here. Okay. Everybody knows what Nancy Pelosi looks like. Okay. Speaker of the House. I have John Boehner. These are my notes. They're old, so he's not speaker anymore. Okay. It's Nancy Pelosi. Okay. Now, no one can speak unless given permission to speak. And then I kind of talk about this. Any of you in here do 4-H growing up? Any of you familiar with parliamentary procedure? Okay. So this is how this, and we learned this like when I was in school, but I guess we don't teach it anymore. But parliamentary procedure is basically how you run a meeting. Okay. And if I want to talk on the floor of the House, I have to be recognized by the presiding officer of the House at the time. Okay. Nancy Pelosi doesn't preside over the House all the time. Okay. She can when she wants to. Okay. But she doesn't do that every day. So you can only speak unless you're recognized. Now, if I am recognized to speak on the floor of the House, and Grace interrupts me and says, Mr. President, would the good representative from Kansas yield me 1 minute of time so I can share my opinion on this? And I would agree, okay? I will yield 1 minute of my time to Grace, give her opinion on this. Now, I don't speak to Grace, and Grace doesn't speak to me. We both speak to the presiding officer. Okay? This prevents a lot of name calling in these two bodies. Okay? Now, there's crafty ways to do that. Call people names. You just don't say it directly to them. The good representative, my good friend from Montana, is pretty much clueless about how this system works. They need to educate themselves. Okay? Now, so the speaker also interprets and applies the rules. She decides which committees bills go to. We talked about that the other day, right? So anytime a bill is introduced, it's going to be referred to a committee. Nancy Pelosi controls every single one of them. Okay? And if she doesn't like it, she sends it to committee where she knows the chairman will, what's the word? Pigeonhole it. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Pigeonhole it. Okay? Now, she also gets to choose which members of the Democratic Party are on which committees. Talked about that as well, yes? And then with the Republicans, that would be Kevin McCarthy. Okay? The speaker is only required to vote to break a tie vote or create a tie vote. Now, members generally show up to vote. Okay, and until COVID, you actually had to be on the floor to vote. You can't phone it in. You got to be there. And I think they're still allowing members not to show up and vote, which to me is wrong. But, okay.
They're all old.
Yeah, well, okay, well then retire. So let somebody else do the job. All right. The number 2 in the House is the majority leader. We got old Steny Hoyer there, right? Yeah, Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Okay. He's like the right-hand man of Nancy Pelosi. He's a legislative strategist. He helps her steer legislation through the floor, on the floor, and so forth. Then you have your minority leader, which again is Kevin McCarthy. Now, Kevin McCarthy has some power over his own caucus, over the Republicans, but that's it. Guys, it stinks being in the minority in the House and Senate. I can remember Todd Tiahrt came and talked to my students when the Republicans controlled Congress, and then he came back when they lost in the midterms. He said it's horrible. The chairman of his committees that he was sitting on, they wouldn't even listen to him. They should ignore you. Okay? And the chances of getting any legislation passed if you're in the minority is slim. Okay? And then your whips. Okay? The whips play 2 major roles. Okay? If Nancy Pelosi wants to know how many votes she has for a piece of legislation, she goes and talks to who? James Clyburn? Is that right? James Clyburn. Majority whip in the House. Okay? He will know how many Democrats are going to vote a certain way. He will also know if there's any Republicans that are thinking about voting for it. The other part of this is, have you ever heard the term twisting somebody's arm? To get them to do something, twist their arm? That's what the whip does. Okay? Gets his Democrats in line. Okay? Get the Republicans in line. Whip them into shape. Twist their arms. Convince them to vote with the party leadership. Okay? So there's your whips. Then, of course, we've talked about committee chairmen, or chairpersons, I should say. Okay? These are very important. They are like the speaker over the committee. They control the calendar of the committee, yes? And if they don't like it, they don't put it on the calendar, it dies. Again, pigeonhole. Now, the committee chairs are always of the majority party, okay? And I already talked about this, how the number of members of the committee will always have more of the majority party than the minority party. This is proportional to the whole Congress or the whole House or Senate. Committee chairs are usually based on seniority. Like if you've been on that committee the longest, you get to be the chair. In more recent years, I know the Republicans have started having elections for these committee chairs, especially some of the more important committees. Because sometimes, guys, the person that's been there the longest is not the right person for the job. Okay? I could give you some examples, but some of these people just turn my stomach. Okay. All right, so that's a good look at the House, right? Let's move over to the other side, to the Senate, okay? How many members of the Senate? 2 from each state, 6-year terms. Okay, now, this is where things get a little confusing for people. It's easy with the House because every member of the House is up for, every seat is open every 2 years, yes? The Senate, that's not the case. So in 2022, this November, 33 senators will be up for re-election. 2024, 33 more seats will be up. And 26, the last 34. So if you really wanted to throw all the bums out of Congress, you can't. You can only throw out 435 in the House, plus 33 or 34 in the Senate. Now, what does this do? This is called a contiguous body. So you have, at any given time, between 66, 67 people with 2 to 4 years of experience. This is an experienced body, okay? And so that continuity hopefully helps government run more efficiently, or Congress run more efficiently, okay? For Kansas' sake, Gerrymandering, I believe, is up in 2024. Roger Marshall was just elected in 2020. So he's not up till 2026. They're staggered in Kansas. So, so we have junior senator, which is Marshall, senior senator, which is Moran. Okay. As we added new states, okay, kind of staggered these seats. So guys, if Republicans want to take control of the Senate, they really only need to win +1 because it's 50-50. Or Democrats, same thing, +1. What's interesting is to look at, and I don't know this number, but how many of these 33 senators that are up for election are Republicans or Democrats? In some years, you have a lot more of one of the two parties that are up for election. Does that make sense? And it matters what states they're from. Some states, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a Democratic senator or a Republican senator. Okay? How old do you have to be? 30. How old was the House? Okay, it's like Schoolhouse Rock. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 for the House, 30 for the Senate, 35 for President. Easy way to remember that, yeah? Okay.
That was like, do you have to be that age when you take office, or do you have to be that age when you start running?
You'd have to be by November.
Okay, by
Yeah.
the election.
Yeah. Now, originally, our senators were chosen by state legislatures. That was changed by the 17th Amendment, that we need to change again and repeal. Right? Direct election of senators, bad idea. We talked about that, right? Okay, thanks. Fine, whatever. And you have to live in the state that you represent. 9 years a citizen. Now, our former Senator, Pat Roberts, retired in 2020, had served in the Senate for almost 30 years. His kids were raised in Virginia. His kids went to school in Virginia. He retained an address in Kansas, but really he lived in DC. Okay. He got criticized for that when he ran for re-election back in 2014. Sorry. I usually have that on silent. Okay. Yeah, which really made me mad. You know what I mean? Like, dude, do you represent Kansas or not? I mean, you live here or you live in Virginia? What's the deal? Okay. Jerry Moran, I know this, who lives in Hayes, comes home almost every weekend. Okay. Now that's not easy. Flying into Kansas is not easy. You guys that travel know that. Okay. It's a pain in the neck. Okay. So the fact that he comes home almost every weekend says a lot about Jerry Moran. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. He's got a budget for travel. And really, you want that because you want your representatives to be with the people that they represent. You know, at least some. Are you leaving?
Yeah, I have a service project.
Where are you guys going?
St. Peter's.
Okay. Have fun.
Thanks,
Nice and
Sasha.
windy.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
At least it's warm.
Yeah.
Have fun. Oh, yeah. We did ours yesterday. All right.
Wait, did you say it was Marshall or Moran?
Moran. I'm not sure about Roger. I don't know where he lives. Or it's just before house. No, I was supposed to eat on the house. All right.
House day.
Huh? Oh, crap.
We don't have house. For the rest of the week.
Dang it. I was relying on that today. Like I was gonna do some prep work for my business law class.
Oh, well.
Okay. They're gonna be mad. No, they won't. All right. Who's the president of the Senate? The VP, Kamala Harris. Okay. The vice president only votes if there's a tie. Okay. You see, Dick Cheney for 8 years with Bush never had to. Al Gore did it 6 times when he was vice president. I believe Kamala has broken some ties. I mean, it only makes sense, right? 50-50 right now. And then you have this position, we talked about this in history, the Senate President pro tempore. Okay? This is not, well, first of all, the president is not like, the vice president is not like the speaker. Neither is this guy. The Senate President pro tempore is presiding officer and also not equivalent to the Speaker of the House. Remember, this position was created in 1947 under the Presidential Succession Act of 1947, okay, where they changed the order of succession. President, vice president used to go to the cabinet, Secretary of State, and they put the speaker and this person, the Senate President pro tempore, in between. So Patrick Leahy is third in line to be president, behind the vice president and speaker. So if the president, the vice president, and the speaker were all to die, Patrick Leahy would become president. Okay? They all died at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, what is?
And then it goes to the cabinet, correct? In the order they were created. So when you have the State of the Union address, and you have the president, the vice president, and the speaker all sitting right next to each other during the State of the Union address, the Senate President pro tempore is in the room as well. And then you have some of the cabinet there, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Treasury, Transportation, whatever, okay? You always leave one home. Keep them safe in case there was a bomb that blew up the entire U.S. Capitol and all those people were killed. The designated survivor is not in the building.
So, like, you pick one person,
You pick one.
and they're just never around all the same time.
Correct.
Like,
Is it different people each time?
Yeah, generally, yeah. In the TV show, I think it was the Interior Secretary. That was the designated survivor, played by Kiefer Sutherland, who's an actor. Okay. I watched the first couple episodes of that. I imagine it's a decent show, but how long are you just going to drag that on? Like, how do you just... There is a bomb, and those people die, and he becomes president, so... Then what? I guess it's a show about the guy that became president.
so, like, let's say that everybody but one of the people is there, can the designated survivors still be there, or do they still have to, like?
No, I mean, there's no law that says you can't have everybody there, but just be smart. They leave one home. Now, what happened if all of them went? Who would be president? Yes, no. What I imagine would happen is the governors of the states would get together and choose one of their own to lead the country during this crisis, because it would be a crisis.
Oh, we're talking about, like, everyone in the House and Senate
Yeah.
and the cabinet, like, everyone?
Yeah, they all died.
Okay.
You know, like there was some type of pandemic. Okay.
Bryson.
All right. Now, the most power, guys, in the Senate lies with this person, the Senate Majority Leader. Okay, and that, of course, is Chuck Schumer. Okay. Minority Leader is Mitch McConnell. Okay, and then you have your whips, Steve Scalise for the Republicans and Dick Durbin of Illinois for the Democrats.
Wait, who's the
Minority Leader is Mitch McConnell. It's all on page 74.
Okay.
Now, can I just say something? This is a matter of opinion. Okay? You ready? I don't care. I don't care. The leadership for both of these parties is awful. I mean, there's a couple on here that are just flat out bold-faced liars that don't care. They will lie to your face and they don't care. They have no conscience. And it makes me sick. And then you have others that are just stupid. Let me tell you something. Mitch McConnell. I'm speaking of a Republican here, okay? When Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, Mitch McConnell was the Senate Majority Leader. Actually, it was a minority. Democrats controlled both houses. Mitch McConnell gets on the floor of the Senate after Obama's elected. And he says, our number one job, our primary focus will be to make Barack Obama a one-term president. Now, hold up now. The United States of America just elected our first African-American president. Yes, he's a Democrat. It's a historic moment. And this is the first thing you're going to say when you get on the Senate floor? You're dividing the American people here. You have said, hey, we will try and find common ground with this new president. Congratulations on this election. Where we do not have common ground, we will fight against things that we see are wrong for the country. Something like that. So do you think Barack Obama is going to want to meet with the minority leader of the United States Senate after he takes to the floor and says what he said? It's just stupidity. Okay. Now, guys, I didn't vote for Barack Obama either time. Okay. But as an American, I was kind of proud of my country. You know what I mean? Like, we had done something historic. With the history of this country with slavery and Jim Crow and all the things we've been through, there had to be a ton of white people that voted for Barack Obama to win the presidency, right? And to me, that kind of like said to me, like, we've come a long way in this country. And I felt proud of us, even though, I didn't like the guy. His policies, he's a likable guy. I just didn't support what he supported. You understand? Okay? But, I just think Mitch McConnell, come on, man. It's just like, yeah. So, and I'm not going to disparage these people, but I could. Really. These people have been around a long time. I know them. You know what I mean? Like, Dick Durbin. Holy cow. This guy. I mean, I wouldn't. Okay, I'm moving on. All right. So, what time we get out of here? Biddy? Okay. What's this all about? Powers of Congress? Limited by federalism? Meaning that certain powers belong to the states and not to Congress? Yeah? The powers of Congress are expressed. That means they're written in the document. Yes? And then some of them are implied, like the necessary and proper clause or the elastic clause or the interstate commerce clause, things like that. Okay? What's that all about? Oh, here. Oh, wow. Look at this. Okay. You know what we're going to do? What's today? Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about taxes and other express powers. Okay? As far as the notes goes, guys, we're almost done. I mean, I got a day. Now, hold up now. We still got to go over how a bill becomes a law. Okay, so you're not going to have a test this week because you got a book review to do this week. Yes? So I'm not going to do that to you. And I did put up an optional assignment, just 8 points today. There's some legislative questions in your book, page 78 to 82. It's optional. If you want to read those and tell me yes or no and why, you'll have to get off the fence. And you can do those if you want. And I didn't make them due till I think Monday or Tuesday. So that way you wouldn't have to worry about it before you were working on your paper. Okay? Good? 78 to 82. It's on Canvas. Have a nice day. Like and subscribe.
I mean, you did use the correct method. It's been like